righty.
So thank you, everybody, for coming this morning. So first item on the agenda would be to review and approve our August meeting minutes.
Okay, I'll make a motion to approve.
Motion by Bill to approve the August meeting minutes as written. I'll second that. Is there any further discussion on the August meeting minutes? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Very good. Thank you. I see Sam has joined us. Welcome, Sam.
Yep.
Let's just quickly go around. Sam, my name is Rick Hopkins. I'm speaking to you from my home in East Montpelier. I'm a supervisor with the Winooski Conservation District, also chair of council and the Central Supervisory Union rep to council. So we'll just go around and introduce ourselves. So Kate, you want to go next?
Sure. Hi, Sam. I'm Kate Willard, and I'm a supervisor from the Winooski River Conservation District.
White River.
Oh, I'm sorry, White River. Sorry about that. It's a little early out here. I'm not thinking very clearly.
In Colorado, you are.
That's right. I'm in Fort Collins at the moment.
Nice.
Bill.
Bill Manor, I'm chair of the Ottaquechee Board and the NRCC alternate for the Southeast Union.
And Jessica.
I know Jess and Claire. Well, I think I've met all of you, but
Yeah.
Okay.
Morning,
so
everyone.
I'm Sam. I'm the district manager at Essex County Conservation District.
Well,
All right.
Thank you for joining us this morning, Sam. Rick, as I mentioned earlier, I don't know if we want to change the agenda to get to that item first. What do you think?
Yeah, let's do that, Claire. It makes sense. So when we finish discussion on what Sam is proposing to do, we can cut him loose and then jump back into our agenda. You're welcome to stay on, Sam, if you want to participate with our finance committee meeting in its entirety, but I can understand you're a busy man, so.
I've got a union meeting to get ready for, so I will be hopping off, but happy to stay as long as I need.
Okay.
Right. Well, I'll kick off this item then. So we received a request from Sam to amend a project that we had granted to Essex. This is a culvert replacement. It's a pretty large scale project, and it has been approved by the Finance Committee. Sam can talk about this in more detail, but we received a request to essentially reallocate that money to a very similar project in the same area. And my understanding is the reason for this request is to make best use of available federal funding. And so Lena and I have reviewed the request. We think the project is substantially similar. And so we would, I think, approve making this change. But because this is a large project and because it's something that the Finance Committee previously approved, we wanted to bring it to you for discussion and for approval. And just to be clear, my understanding is there is no request to change the budget amount. This is simply a change of the scope of work of the project. So Sam, do you want to fill in the details and talk a little bit about the process that led you to this point?
Yep. So yes, the current grant is a culvert replacement in Lunenburg for flood resiliency, sediment reduction, aquatic organism passage. The request is to add to the scope of work another culvert in Brighton. Yes, Brighton. There's a third one, but it's done. So another culvert in Brighton, and that culvert So all 3 culverts that are in this federal grant that we hold were identified as aquatic organism passage priorities in our watershed by a process that has been in it. We basically have a working group in the area with multiple partners, and they were all identified as high priority for aquatic organism passage. All of them have seen washouts in the last few years, and yeah, so that's sediment and erosion. And then, so the reason that I'm making the request, the original intent was we would use this grant to offset some of the costs on the Lunenburg structure, which is mostly being paid for by the federal grant. But so this spring we had some federal funding freezes, which made us a little nervous about losing the majority of the funding for that project without really any explanation or notice. And so basically our thought process is, let's spend the money, the federal money that we're a little more nervous about as soon as we can to get the Lunenburg project done, which is in construction right now. The Brighton culvert, due to permitting backlog, is not going to be ready to go to construction until next year. So basically we're hoping to avoid holding a huge amount of federal money over the winter, and whatever changes may come with that. So basically, either way, we were planning on doing these 2 culverts and a third one that's already done with this grant plus the federal funds plus some grants that Trout Unlimited has brought to the project. And we're just asking to expand this specific grant from NRCC to cover more of that scope so that we can be a little more flexible in how we spend money. And I guess just to be really thorough, Trout Unlimited is the primary kind of project manager on the Brighton culvert. So we will mostly be using those funds to pay invoices that they are sending to us after they've hired their contractor and replaced the culvert.
Thank you.
So Sam, thanks for that. But basically adding an additional site, if you will, a second culvert, but you also just wanted more time. Is that what I'm recalling?
Yes, so the additional site, and then we're asking for an extension as well because construction for that culvert wouldn't start until 2026, tentatively July 2026. But in my experience, the engineers often like to see a spring high flow and kind of evaluate performance that following spring. So I'm asking for through June 2027.
Yeah, I did read it over and I didn't see any real problem with it. Made sense to me.
Yeah, and our parent agreement, all this, Sam, as you know, is sort of a house of cards. But anyway, our parent agreement that where the money flows out of, we won't be inconsistent with if we go to June 27, right? Okay.
No, that's fine. That grant has been extended through 2031, so we have plenty of time to do that extension. There is no change of funding level, so this fits within our budget. We may need to change the council budget. It may impact the future council budget, since we were budgeting on this grant coming through this year. But that's something we can always discuss later. It's not a problem.
Okay. Great. If there aren't any other questions, I guess this is where we come to, I'm looking for a motion to approve the amendment to the enhancement grant issued for the Essex Conservation District.
Yeah, I'll make the motion.
Motion by Bill,
I'll second it.
seconded by Kate. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you, Sam. Good
Yep,
luck.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you, everybody. Appreciate all you're doing.
yeah.
Right.
All right.
Thank you, Sam. Lena is out this week, but when she's back, she'll follow up with an amendment.
Okay, awesome.
So, yeah, Sam, we're going to just roll right along with the rest
Yep.
of our agenda. Stay with us for as long as you want or not.
I'm gonna take off. See you, folks.
Okay.
See ya.
Thank you, Sam.
Have a good day.
Bye.
All right, so let's look at the agenda. The next item would be the FY26 VACD NRCC Personnel Agreement.
Yes, so I can present this. I sent this around with the meeting information. This is what we do every year. And the amount of the agreement is in the budget that was passed at the last board meeting. So we do bring this to the Finance Committee for approval because this is an agreement over $20,000. It's a substantial agreement. And this is the opportunity to review some of the terms of the agreement. The major change that we have for this year is mostly in the template that we're using. This is now following the state contract template. And so it's longer than you're probably used to seeing, and it includes a lot more boilerplate sort of legal language in this agreement. I'm going to share my screen and just so I can point out some of the highlights. But I'm also happy to answer questions as we go through. Okay. So this is a contract between VACD and council. It's for the fiscal year, so this is retroactively starting as of July 1st. We are already sort of working under this agreement, though that's not uncommon to how we've done it in past years. Ideally, we do want to have this approved before the start of the fiscal year. So that's something we can talk about, but this year, the statement of work here does outline a little bit more in terms of the scope of work for each position. Historically, we've left this pretty open-ended, but this is one of the aspects that the state contract form asks you to fill in is sort of what the contracted personnel will be doing. Seems reasonable. I'll just walk through this, but it does also associate a budget for each position and the FTE, the full-time equivalent, so the number of hours that each position will be working. My position is budgeted 80% to council and would be providing general administrative support to the board, finance committee meetings, organizational policies, review of statute as needed, aligning operations with the state of Vermont guidance to whatever extent needed, and coordination of support with outside entities like our agency partners in the state attorney general's office, overseeing various grants and financial operations, providing support to the districts around questions relating to organizational operations, administration, HR, and represent as needed council with various state and federal partners. So that's what we have for my scope of work here. We have our various managers, our program managers. So agriculture, it's pretty straightforward. This is managing council's Ag CWIP grant and sort of other duties as needed. I did put that in sort of for each program manager since we may be in a position of needing to research or apply for additional grant awards. Then we have one of our finance grant and finance managers, and this would be Lena's position, managing council's enhancement block grant, assisting me with administrative tasks, assisting other grants managers as needed, and conducting routine bookkeeping for council. We have the communications coordinator. This is Julia, and so she will be managing our website work, various communications materials, and supporting districts with communication needs. We have Jess budgeted for 40% of her time. More of Jess's time is now budgeted for VACD, so that is a change a little bit with this year's budget. But we do have Jess still pegged for managing tactical basin planning and trees for streams, and sort of additional grants work as needed. That may change over the course of the year. We are sort of maybe potentially shifting some of those grants duties, but for the time, but those would be covered one way or the other under this agreement. We are budgeting for a human resources position that has not been hired for yet, but this would be to support districts with HR needs. And then the executive director is budgeted very small percentage of her time to this agreement, and this would be supporting the above listed agreement positions. So, you know, conducting hiring and general management for all of the staff listed above, as well as directly assisting with grants and program management as needed. So Michelle does do some direct work, for example, with like EGCWIP or occasionally enhancement grants. She does a, you know, review and weigh in on some of that, supporting us. So that's the scope of work for this agreement. Again, this amount down here is the total. It was approved in the budget. So this really just gives a little bit more detail about how that money is being used. I'll pause here and see if there's any questions.
Yeah, Claire, thanks for just so that people understand that total figure that you had highlighted. Yeah, 482. I mean, that's could you just let people know that's come from different sources, right?
Right. So that
Yeah.
the budget outlines how that's supported by all of our grant sources. And I guess the other thing to note here is that this isn't just, this is sort of an all-inclusive number. So this includes wages, benefits, you know, it does include indirect to VACD, and it includes materials and sort of office supplies that our managers use. So this is sort of an all-inclusive number for everything that would, you know, be needed to, you know, administer these positions.
So the total 4 FTEs,
Yeah.
the 482,000 and change. So it's not all just coming from council core services, legislative appropriation, just so that
No.
people understand. Okay.
I think only 50,000 of this is coming from core services. The rest really is from the other grants that we manage.
Yeah.
Yeah. So then I'll just keep skimming through this. We don't need to linger too much, but I did want to highlight that we do have these sort of terms. I did include these terms about how, or sort of the expectations that staff work under. All of this that I'm including here, nothing is new. This is all stuff that we are already either doing or aware of. It's now just on paper. So this is just setting certain expectations about how the staff will be conducting their work, about you know, making sure that people comply with the various applicable policies, rules, regulations, professional conduct, and making it very clear here that lobbying work does not happen under council. That would all happen under VACD. And making it very clear that our staff, when they are working for council, are subject to open meeting law, public records laws, etc. So that's spelled out now. It hadn't been in the past. And it does give the board chair a role in overseeing the performance of this grant. So if there is a performance issue with this contract, there are various provisions that could kick in up to and including canceling the contract with appropriate notice. So that's, I think, everything I wanted to highlight for you, because we haven't, like I said, we haven't previously had that in writing. the rest of this, rest of these 18 pages are really sort of boilerplate, just attachments that you are common to any contract or grant. So I'm not going to go over them. That's sort of the legal side of what the state does for every agreement. So yeah, I'll pause and see if there's any additional questions.
Thank you, Claire. Yeah, and
Yes.
we've had these agreements in place sort of year to year. The only major difference this time around is the nature of the agreement being using the state of Vermont grant template. So hopefully people understand what this is intended to do for all the staff that help us keep the ball moving forward.
I think this makes it a little clearer because it spells everything out.
Yeah, agreed. So Claire, are you looking for a motion to approve the FY26 agreement, the agreement itself?
Yes.
Yeah. So if there aren't any further questions or comments, I guess I'd be looking for a motion to approve the personnel agreement for FY26.
I'll move it.
I'll second.
Motion by Kate, seconded by Bill. Any further discussion? Thank you, Claire, for preparing that and walking us through it. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Very good. Great.
Thank you, everyone.
So we'll just keep rolling along here. Bill and Kate, I've got to leave around 9:30, 9:40. I've got a Winooski district meeting. So
Okay.
I think we can get through this, at least the stuff that needs to be approved. So next up would be grant proposals, approvals, and updates.
I will kick us off with that. So I just wanted to give the committee an update that we did have a meeting with the Agency of Agriculture to submit our FY27 core service budget request. I think that was well received by the Agency of Agriculture. Rick was at that meeting, as was Michelle Monroe, and a number of people from the Agency of Ag, including Anson Tebbets. I think it was a very good discussion, and Rick, feel free to weigh in, but I felt pretty good about the level of engagement and interest in a lot of what we were presenting. We did have the meeting earlier in the year, so I think that gives the Agency of Ag a little bit more time to think through potentially different ways to accommodate our request, though would just, again, say that it's unlikely that they support our full request. But there was also quite a bit of conversation about how council itself is structured, and if there are better ways to or potential changes to our enabling statute to get council and districts more support and sort of alleviate some of the confused challenges that we've faced under our current sort of structure. Rick, do you have anything you want to add about that meeting?
Yeah, we used a full hour of everyone's time and we covered a lot of ground, reminded them, we still think that the $3 million request is really what it would cost to have one person at every district so that the districts can, better perform and achieve what is expected of them. We acknowledge the budget uncertainties this year, but we also pointed out that our request for 27 kind of represented a 10% increase. What was it? What was the figure? 948?
I don't know offhand. I think it was
Yeah.
980 something, but yeah.
Yeah, it was a 10% increase to, sort of accommodate the anticipated increase in cost to, pay people to do their jobs.
Right.
And, we talked a little bit about per diems for not only supervisory union reps, but also helping supervisors at each of the 14 districts for recruitment, retention, all that. So I think it was pretty well received. They didn't commit one way or the other, but they did say, don't be surprised if you see a lower number in the Agency of Ag's budget representing council. So I'm sure VACD annual meeting will talk about the contract with Action Circles, which would be VACD's lobbyists to help us get the number up to where we think it ought to be. But yeah, it was a good session, and yeah.
I think that's all I had to update. It was just to let you know that that meeting has happened and that the request is out there now. Rick did allude to the per diem conversation. I have that as an agenda item later. There's been a lot of follow-up about that after our meeting that I can update the committee on.
Okay. So if there are any other questions on the FY27 request, then core services.
That was my core services update.
Okay. So FY26 DM rep.
Yes, so I initially put this on the agenda thinking that this needed committee approval. I went back and looked at the numbers. These agreements don't need committee approval. They're going to come in at about $11,500 each. So that's under our $20,000 threshold. But just to let you know, similar to the VACD personnel agreement, we do every year make a contract with our 2 district manager reps. Those roles are currently served by Corey Ross from Wyndham and Sarah Damsel from Orleans. So I'll be getting them contracts for the fiscal year. Again, that's going to be a little over $11,000 each, and that supports their work in representing the districts at in various capacities. So, for example, we always support them going to the Northeast NACD meeting so that they can go and report back, and also participate in the Northeast Employees Association meetings. So they're sort of doing that work to represent the districts in a broader scope. So those will be coming down the line, and those are supported by our core services agreement. So,
Yep.
So that's all I have for that item.
Okay.
All right. We talked about Sam's amendment. Were there any other grant updates?
I don't have any. Jess or Emily, do you have any?
I can give a quick update. Sorry for keeping my camera off. I'm here with a sick baby. But we have gotten our agricultural advisory team committee together for their first meeting. So we have 2 district managers on that committee, Sarah from Orleans and Jennifer from White River. And then we also have 2 district staff members from Wyndham and 1 from Franklin County. So we're excited about that group and the sort of diversity of experiences that they're bringing to the table. We're working on agreements for that. They're not going to need committee approval, but we did have you folks approve the RFA. So just wanted to keep you aware of what's going on with that. We're also working through an amendment. We are trying our best. We have to make some deliverables changes. We got several requests from districts. Most are hoping not to adjust their budgets. So we're trying our best to work through those and see what we can do to change deliverables to still work for those districts without taking any of their budget away if possible. We're still figuring out the details of that. We're still waiting on some folks to submit proposals. So we don't have anything to present at this time, but that's where we're at in the process. And we're hoping to have that all resolved and finalized with the agency by end of October, because they are putting out a new RFA for Ag CWIP at the start of November, we're anticipating. So we're kind of hoping to have the amendment for the current agreement resolved by then. I
So
think that's all I have.
It sounds like we would probably be bringing amendments to this committee in November.
That's the hope. Yep.
Okay, sounds good. Jess, do you have any updates?
I'll just mention that I'm planning to release a request for applications for Trees for Streams for spring plantings for next year. So and I think that's going to be next week. So we're headed into another application round for Trees for Streams, and that's really all I have, I think.
Thanks. Any
Excellent.
questions?
Excellent. Okay, so does that bring us down to administrative updates?
Sure. Yeah, and this is yeah, I can just talk through these. I wanted to keep the committee updated on my conversations with the AG's office and with the Office of Administration. The first item here is open meeting law. I did have a meeting with the AG's office about open meeting law, and most of it was focused on districts. And so we talked through some various scenarios, questions that I had gotten from districts with the AG's office. And I will be putting out additional guidance for districts, hopefully by early next month. Really, there's no change to the guidance that we put out previously, which was that districts should be considered local non-advisory public bodies under the new law. And so this is sort of the higher standard where all district board meetings, committee meetings, et cetera, have to be hybrid, have to be recorded. This is, what you think of with like select board meetings and all of that. So districts are in that same category. The questions I was getting from districts were really related to these fuzzy areas about what meetings exactly should need to be covered. And the AG's office is pretty risk averse, and also just pointed out to me that there is no case law yet for the new law. So the new law has not been tested in courts. There's nothing that they can refer to about how court would interpret the law. So because of that, they didn't feel confident in giving much guidance other than when in doubt, treat the meeting as though it's subject to open meeting law. So some of the things I think we probably need to help districts with are things like strategic planning sessions that the board might undertake, or certain types of meeting that the district board may be present for as a quorum. So like, for example, one of the questions I got was about local work group meetings. And a district, reached out to me and said, hey, my full board's going to be at this local work group meeting. Does that count? Like, does that need to be open meeting law? The AG's office basically said, yes, like when in doubt, if there's a quorum of the board, if you're going to be discussing anything related to the district's business, treat that as an open meeting. So I know that that's going to be hard for a lot of districts. Ultimately, districts do have to make the determination about applicability of open meeting law, like on a case-by-case basis on their end. but I am hoping to get some level of guidance that they can refer to. But I do think a lot of meetings that districts have just, they won't be subject, so any programmatic meetings that the board's not at, when the board has delegated authority to staff to take care of certain, day-to-day business, none of that is subject to open meeting law. So I am hoping to get some clarity out. I will be running the draft guidance by you, Rick, by Michelle Monroe, just to see if you guys see any red flags with the guidance. But essentially, it will be erring on the side of caution. Wanted to see if there's any questions or concerns as we move forward with that.
My only concern is the hybrid business. My district does not have an NRCS computer, so we can't do anything at the NRCS office.
Yeah, okay. Oh, I didn't even think of that. So you can't have a private laptop that you can use for a
No.
meeting? Okay,
They won't let us in their system.
okay.
Now, if somebody has a hotspot, it might work.
Okay,
But I know with my cell phone at that location, if I have one bar, I'm lucky. Even though it's a heavily populated area.
okay.
So that's one thing we're gonna have to look at.
That's a new one for me. That's a new question. I didn't realize that that there would be that barrier.
Yeah.
I'm
Okay.
wondering if we couldn't work out something though in Springfield, there is a state office building. And maybe we could arrange to get a meeting room once a month there that somebody could go, the district manager or something could go in there and hook up to their system.
I can certainly include some thoughts on that in the guidance. I think, public libraries, town
Right.
meeting halls, town
Right.
administrative offices,
I
could
mean,
all be
from
potential.
experience, I think in the 12 years or 13 years that I've been with the district, we've only had public come in 2 times.
I know, and I feel so bad with this guidance because I know that we almost, like for these meetings here, we almost never get anybody from the public. We never have gotten anybody from the public unless they're specifically invited to talk about an issue.
Right.
I think my thought is really we just need to make sure districts are dotting their i's and crossing their t's just as a liability management. But yeah,
I agree with that. It's just we'll have to think about it and see what we can come up with for the hybrid stuff.
Yeah. Any other thoughts or questions on that? Okay, there is an outstanding question I have with the AG's office, which is about it's about council meetings and specifically about executive session. So this question came up, Kate, I think you raised this question in the past about whether or not we could have certain conversations about that relate to performance management under grants and contracts, if in an executive session. That sort of came up in conversation as I was talking with the AG. They think that's actually a very good question, and they wanted to look at that more. So they may actually have a recommendation for certain times that we do go into executive session in the future. So I'll let you know if they come back with any guidance on that. We are just in a very strange position in how due to our structure, as you know, in sort of our dual role of sort of providing some degree of oversight and guidance for the districts, but also being a funder and also, having representation from the districts on our board. It's just a very complicated situation that they want to take a look at.
Good. Well, that's good. You'll get some more guidance, I guess.
Yep.
I always appreciate any time somebody can help me out because I'm not an expert in how to interpret that law. So okay. That's all I have for open meeting law. Okay,
All right.
so the procurement update, I did have a meeting with the Agency of Administration around the questions about the applicability of Bulletin 3.5 and Bulletin 5. I think at our last meeting, I let you guys know that the AG's office had determined that, and I think at the board meeting too, I let you know that the AG's office had determined that those bulletins would be applicable to council. I ran that by the Agency of Administration's office, and their initial reaction was, no, they wouldn't be applicable. And we talked with them about, again, our structure and sort of how we're not really construed as an agency. We're not, we're not operating as an agency. And so their initial reaction was, no, they're not applicable. Rick has asked for a memo to be written from the Agency of Administration that we can have on file to reference. But that said, I'm having another meeting with them about this later this week. They have run a few more questions by their own internal counsel. So I don't know what their updated guidance is going to be, just to let you know that is ongoing. I am hoping that these would not be applicable because if they are, we are left with some very big questions about how to make that happen in the absence of access to state systems. So hopefully this meeting that I have on Thursday will just sort of iron that out, and I can get a memo from them with their opinion. But an update on the procurement question. Any questions there?
But in the meantime, Claire, we do have a procurement policy that has been finalized, submitted to DEC. Conceivably, the Agency of Administration is aware of that, and so we're rolling along nonetheless.
Yeah, so in the absence of, of guidance from the state, I am using our approved procurement policy. The Agency of Agriculture is aware of that. So because we fall under their business office, so they're aware of that. And yeah, that's how we're operating for the time being until further notice.
That's great.
Yep. And then the last update I had was on per diem. So this did come up in our meeting with the Agency of Agriculture. We did make an explicit request once again to raise our per diem rate. We would be raising it from $50 to $100. And, conceptually, Agency of Agriculture is supportive of this. However, they didn't, in our meeting with them, they didn't feel like they could submit the request because they don't administer that per diem and they don't administer our board. So they view us more as an independent board. And from their business office perspective, we would need to make that request directly to the Agency of Administration, who could then treat that as a request within the scope of the overall state budget. I brought that to the Agency of Administration. They have requested that I work through the Agency of Agriculture's business office. So that's again an open question. I am hoping to talk with them more about this at our meeting on Thursday because I think there may be some misunderstanding from the Agency of Administration about our relationship with the Agency of Agriculture. The Agency of Administration also mentioned that districts would have to make that request through the Agency of Agriculture's business office, and I don't think that would be an appropriate mechanism because the district budgets aren't approved by the Agency of Agriculture. So I need to talk through that with the Agency of Administration. But the outcome that I'm hoping for is that we just get a like a form or template from AOA that I can write the request on, submit to them, and that they can treat through their process that they use for every other entity. So that's what I'm hoping for. I will keep you updated on how that goes, but just to let you know, we are trying to raise per diems. I know that's been a big issue for Richard for many years now. it's just that we are getting a little bogged down with the state processes. So I am trying to make that happen for FY27.
Yeah. Yeah, thanks, Claire. It's just, it's unfortunate, you know, you got one agency pointing in one direction, you got the other agency pointing back at the first agency. And, you know, I think folks at the Agency of Agriculture understand that, you know, much of the district's functioning falls on the shoulders of the DMs and staff. But on the other hand, we do have the structure where supervisors are elected, they can be appointed, but nonetheless, all the supervisors are essentially volunteering their time and energy to, you know, helping districts succeed. And so, you know, per diems are an important way to attract people to participate, retain them. I think that every district explains the difference between an associate supervisor and a elected supervisor, as far as being eligible for per diems, but nonetheless, it's just another important ingredient in trying to do everything that we can to ensure the success and strengthening of the district. So per diems is something that we all should be thinking about.
Thanks, Rick. And I know me going through all of these issues that I'm talking with AOA about. I know this is just kind of an update, but I appreciate the opportunity to talk about that with the committee because you know, I appreciate any thoughts or guidance as we move through this process. It's just trying to navigate those state systems has been a task. So thank you.
Yeah.
Right.
That's all I have for admin updates.
Okay.
So next up, looks like district elections and supervisory union representative guidance. Claire.
Yes. So one last thing to talk through with the committee today. I did send out elections guidance to district managers earlier this month. We got that out towards the beginning of September. Usually we get that out towards the beginning of October, so we're running ahead of schedule this year. But Rick, you requested that I send out that guidance to board chairs as well. I will be doing that hopefully by the end of this month. I am hoping to include with that a little bit more guidance about supervisory unions. We've had just some confusion and miscommunication about, you know, how people get elected to the supervisory union rep role. And then sort of what, you know, how that happens, you know, how do you get elected to the supervisory union representative role to council, but then also how supervisory unions should be doing that electing. You know, we have some new supervisors. We also have some supervisory unions that just haven't historically been very active. So I am hoping to get more guidance out about that side of things, along with district elections. So ideally, what would happen every year, you'd have district elections, you'd get a new supervisor, fill whatever vacancies you have on the board. The board would then, you know, functionally what ends up happening is that the supervisory unions, like the full boards of every district, get together. But the way it's in statute about electing a representative would be that really one voting member from each district would then elect the representative to council. So I will be referencing our statute and just making that clear. Historically, we haven't been very formal about this because there hasn't been competition. So, you know, but this is how it is outlined in statute. So I'll make everyone aware of that. And then from there, I will be asking people to more formally identify who their rep is, so I can have that on file in case there's any confusion in the future. Historically, the way we've asked districts to report is that they change a line on a spreadsheet, which there are problems with that method. That spreadsheet can get overwritten or changed erroneously. So I'll just be putting together a very quick form. Districts will fill out, send it to me, and we'll just have that on file.
Yeah.
That's all I have.
Yeah, and then Claire too, I think if you're going through all that, just as a footnote, it's important for supervisory unions to also designate an alternate in addition to the rep.
Yeah.
The alternate just gives us 6 more sets of eyes and ears on council and district matters. An alternate is important if the supervisory union rep can't attend a meeting for one reason or another, then the alternate can step in. And this all applies to the 3 agencies as well. So, it's just a way of ensuring as good attendance at meetings and awareness by essentially 18 people instead of 9 on a good day. So anyway, just the mentioned, please, Claire, the importance of an alternate too.
Yep. I'm an alternate. So our district, union is very up on the procedures. We've been doing it for quite a few years. And it's a 2-year term for the rep.
Yeah, that's great to hear. Not all supervisory unions are sort of operating that formally. So, and Bill, thank you for being an all-star alternate.
Yeah. I've switched back and forth. Linda and I kind of switched back and forth.
Yeah. Okay. That's all I have.
All right. Well, Claire, thank you for that and preparing that guidance and getting it out. Is there any other business from anyone? Once, going twice. Okay, no other business. So I'll take a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
A motion by Bill at 9:24. I will second that motion. And not hearing any further discussion, all in favor?
Aye.
Approved. And Kate?
I had to unmute it first.
That's okay.
All right, well, thank you, everybody, for coming, starting your day this way.
Yep.
And we have a meeting next month, Finance Committee next month?
Yep.
October, I'm paging my calendar.
It is October 15th.
October 15th, 8:30. Very good. Okay.
Yep.